Hello everybody, Reggie Time here, and in just a moment we're going to be chatting with Martin about his hands this week. It's only going to be a shorter video because Martin has a prior engagement. We're not going to be looking at too many hands, but hopefully you guys enjoy it and get something from it. So without further ado, let's get stuck into the discussion with Martin. Right, fella, here we go. Queen 10 offsuit.
Okay.
Oh, before we start, actually, how's it been going? How's the last week been? Sorry.
It's not too bad. I've had family mates, so I haven't played a great deal of mains, unfortunately. I had to socialise a bit. But, I played about 3,000 hands this week, which is not a lot. But hopefully from next week, I'm quite free for the next couple of weeks now, so hopefully I can put some volume in.
Good stuff.
And get to play a bit more.
Good. Right,
So
okay.
there's nothing planned early this week, so...
No bother. People like updates, but if you haven't played much, then you haven't played much. Just bugger all to update, is there? So...
No, so I've had family around and stuff like that now. I had to, I suppose I had to speak to them and stuff like that, so...
Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal, is it? I mean,
No.
I've got family, but not many that want to come to my house. I like to be in control. I like to go to their house, and I can leave when I want. Once you're in your house, you're like, look at the clock thinking, when you fucking off then? Come on.
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I had someone stopping over for a couple of nights as well, so I couldn't get rid of them.
I don't like having my space invaded. Anyways, I know we haven't got long because you've got to go out by 10:15, so let's not spend too much time chatting shit. So we've opened the Queen 10. Excellent.
So this table's pretty loose.
Yeah, that's how we like it. It's a very good table.
The flop top pair against two loose players.
Aha, and we get the donk bet. That's fun.
I think I'll just call it.
Yeah, nothing to see here so far. So now what do you think? So before we rush on to it, when he donks, what did he donk? About half pot, thereabouts?
Yeah, I think it's about half pot. Yeah, half pot.
So what do we think of this turn when it checks to us? Because I noticed that you did skip along and check. What? Hang on, we pretty vast come up. So when we get to this turn and he checks, and it's a brick, I think, wasn't it, or a relative brick?
I think it was 7 of clubs.
It's not a total brick. There's a few things get there, but did you even consider betting here, or are you always just auto checking?
I think we're just checking because there's a lot of straights that get there as well, especially with these two loose players. They can have a lot of two pair as well.
But what's the plan in terms of like? It's I get. I'm gonna try to word this. I get that there are some ways we're beat here, but we are against people with pretty high VPIPs. So there's lots of ways we can get value too, and I think this. I know you've been playing on the site I recommend, on the skin I recommended, which we're not going to name. But hand values change significantly when you play in softer games. I get in the games that you're used to playing in, where it's mostly like tightish players and not too many like passive players. Top pair in a multi-way pot ain't that strong.
Pretty good.
You know, you're kind of looking to get to showdown, maybe get a little bit of value at some point. But I think in games like these, where you've got two very loose players, I think we should at least consider value betting. I think I'm not saying it's a mandatory value bet, but I think it's not an auto check either, because you engage with guys that will just call you with worse hands at you. Flush draws, more other straight draws, second pairs, like who knows, even booking third pairs maybe, straight draws. I think we probably still have a bet here. I mean, we don't want to get check raised by Big Dave, but if we do, we probably have a very easy fold. We also don't want to be giving free cards out too often on this board either, especially to this B Cruel character on the button, who very likely just has a draw, maybe a worse top pair. I mean, imagine if he has a hand like 10-8 here, or Jack 10. You're going to get all this money. He's got 36 big blinds. It's a lot of big blinds. And you're giving yourself a chance to not get all that money by not betting the turn.
Okay, how much would you bet here?
My thoughts here would be, I'm not that interested in playing a massive pot against Big Dave, but I am interested in playing for all of B. Cruel's chips.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably bet around half pot, maybe slightly smaller, maybe slightly
Okay.
bigger. Anyway, like 8 to 12 blinds with the intention of not folding against Be Cruel and with the intention of probably folding should Big Dave invite us to put more chips in on this street. So that would be my strategy here, just like bet for value, especially versus Be Cruel. Don't allow a free card to come off. There's so many bad cards on this river, like any 9, any 6, any 8, any jack, any
Mm-hmm.
spade. It's just so many bad cards. I mean, we check here, it checks through. There's not going to be that many rivers we're happy about. So
No.
under those circumstances, with Be Cruel in the pot, I think I just want to keep building the pot and, value betting versus Be Cruel, whilst also, and I know this is no reason to bet, but also gaining information versus Big Dave. Because if we bet half pot here, Be Cruel calls and Big Dave just decides it's
Come
time
along.
to raise,
Mm-hmm.
then we're probably just fucked. And we have a pretty trivial fold. So we do get information against Big Dave and we do continue building the pot against Be Cruel, who we likely have a better hand than.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if we check and Be Cruel bets it, and then Big Dave calls, we're kind of in a spot where we just have no idea where we are in the hand.
Yeah, we don't
no
know
idea how to
understand.
proceed, really.
Mhm.
Just guessing then.
No, it definitely makes sense. I did write down on my notes that I should have probably bet.
Yeah, I think we're betting here, like, with the intention of just like playing for Be Cruel stack
Mm-hmm.
and not playing for Big Dave
Big
stack.
Dave. Okay, shall I carry on?
Yep. Yeah, then
Yeah,
I
so
see worse rivers, but it's going to be hard to get value now, and it's going to be hard not to pay off if someone bets in the region of half pot.
mm-hmm. I ain't too sure what happened, so check. I'll check again.
Yeah, I mean,
It's half pot.
we're going to have to pay this off. It's very unsatisfactory. I mean, we've got a 55/0 who's called pre, call flop, check turn. Now he wants to bet the river when the 5 pairs. He could have 5x. He's playing 55 VPIP. There's a lot of 5x he can have. He can absolutely have flushes. But he can also maybe have some random booking bluffs because of 55/0 and his bluffs don't have to make sense. So which is why we have to pay it off. But it's just not a very satisfactory way
I think I
to play
folded
the
to be
hand.
honest, or-
Ah, right, okay.
No, I think I can't remember. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we just have to call there because,
Mhm.
We're very under rep. We're pretty much close to top of our range here in terms of how we played it. And it's half pot. And as I say, we're playing against a 55 VPIP who's going to reach this river, excuse me, with all kinds of crap. And yeah, some of his crap is going to be some of his crap earlier in the hand is now going to be a flush. Some of his crap's going to be a 5. But he might also just have King Jack offsuit.
Yeah, totally random.
Some other totally random. He might be value betting 10-8 now. He might be value betting Jack 10. So we beat value. We beat just absolute random nonsense, and we're getting a good price. So I don't think we can. But we call and expect to lose a fair amount. But as played, I think against this type of player
Definitely
who will
call.
just have random nonsense going on, I think we just have to call. But I think the trick we missed was not betting the turn.
Yeah.
Because when Big Dave donks and then checks, he'd lost confidence in his hand. He might have a draw himself that doesn't want to bet and get raised. He might have a 9. He might have a worse 10. He might have a random 5. He might have two random booking cards because he's playing 40/02. But I think because you've been playing in tighter games where when people bet they just have it more, you're kind of conditioned to not overplay top pair. And maybe you were thinking that betting a 10 multi-way there was a bit of an overplay. But against those two opponents, it probably isn't. And you're just going to naturally play bigger pots. When you're playing in looser games where more people call pre-flop, you're just going to be playing typically bigger pots, which will make you you're conditioned to it's a bigger pot. Top pair's not going to be as strong in a bigger pot, etc. And it's multi-way. But when you're playing against people who have 55 and 40 VPIP, all made hands go up in strength a little bit in terms of trying to seek value with them.
Okay.
And then
So,
we just need to, like, if we'd have bet there and we're doing raised, we're probably going to be fucked. But they're just going to have so many hands that are just calling. It would be, I mean, like, there's no reason why B Crew can't just have pocket eights there on the turn and call a large bet. They're just like, don't be scared to seek value. And then when you seek value and get raised, don't be scared to make some extraordinarily tight folds. But don't misvalue in these games. The way we get good win rates in these games is just by not being afraid to seek some thinner value from people who've got pretty wide ranges and play pretty passively.
okay. So we're just writing this down. Okay.
Yeah, like it's multi-way. So like the common logic these days, a multi-way pot, you're going to be careful. You can't bluff as anywhere near as frequently. You've got to be more careful with your value bets, and that's true when people are playing sensible ranges. 55 V pips who've got like, and you've got an SPR of less than 2 against them, and you've got top pair, the money just goes in against them. And if they've got top pair beat, then good for them. But a lot of the time, you could just bet the turn, shove the river, and he might just have called you with 9-8, for example.
So notice a lot. This website's quite. This skin site is quite very loose. So I have to adjust.
Oh, it's a fucking circus.
Oh no! So I have
circus.
to try and adjust how I played before, especially on stars. Stars was quite tight and quite reggy, I guess.
I mean, this site that that you're on now, it's literally like you've got a time machine.
It is.
I can't remember seeing games as soft in over 10 years. But you've got to adjust your game accordingly. I mean, you can just win playing the same way as you play elsewhere because there's just so much more dead money out there, and there's so many more players who are just losing at 100 big blinds, 100. So you're gonna just win by default by just playing like, if you could just play like a complete nit and just win by default because you're just gonna have stronger ranges over on the population and get the money. But if you want to have a really good win rate, you've got to be out there like going for the extra thin value bets and making those like crippling overfolds that make you want to puke. The old rules are like, remember years ago I used to watch a coach on Deuces Cracked called Beluga Whale, and his 3 golden rules were don't pay off, don't bluff, and don't misvalue. And this site's made for that. Do not pay these passive players off when they start getting like aggressive. When you're showing them aggression and they're re-aggressing, then do just get out of their way. Do not pay them off. Don't try to bluff them very often. But absolutely, the biggest crime of all is do not misvalue, because that's how we win. We win these games by green lining and blue lining the shit out of them. We can't blue line the shit out of people if we're not value betting very well.
No, definitely. I have to adjust. We're into the next one.
Yep.
So it's freeway. Pocket sevens raise against 2 players, sorry.
Yep.
Bets.
Oh, spicy. And we know literally nothing about this guy.
No, nothing.
It looks like the first and only hand we played against him.
I think I'll just. Sorry.
Before we rush along, what are your thoughts when this happens?
I think he could have anything. I don't think he. So there's no reading him at all. So I think being in the big blind, he could have anything really, to be honest. So
right. Okay. But we need to pad that thinking out more than just he can have anything. When you say he can have anything, do you think he can have 10-7 offsuit and do this very often? Oh, we've got a 7, so not 10-8 offsuit, ace. I don't know, ace 9. Anything? Do you mean like his entire range could be doing this?
It could be. Yeah, he's pretty efficient. He's just trying to get me off the pot, sort of thing. Or do you think it's the opposite?
Well, I don't know what to think because I'm the same as you. I don't know anything about him. But I do think, typically speaking, when population donk pot, it's
connects.
I think it's going to be usually a strong hand. Now, obviously, like there's lots of players in this pool, as you'll see as you get on with it. You'll see wild varieties of like donking strategies, and I call them strategies very, very loosely. And that you'll see a massive array of sizing tells too. We haven't got any of that on this guy yet. So my default read here is, like, for population, is this guy likes his hand, so let's not go nuts. But at the same strength, we've got an overpair, so let's not fucking fold either. I'm already nervous that we might be in trouble. You know, he could easily have a better hand than 2/7s here, but the pot's still relatively small. Even though this is a big bet in terms of percent of the pot, it's not a big bet in terms of big blinds. And I think the only thing to do here is call. And if he continues potting the turn, even on like relative brick turns that are like I said, 9 comes off an offsuit 9, which is pretty much a fucking brick. I wouldn't be that comfortable continuing like calling versus pot size bets. But for now, we can't fold and we can't raise. So it's quite an easy decision essentially, because raising makes no sense, folding makes no sense. So for now, it's just an easy call. But I think like we need to be aware that not all of it. If we had aces here, for example, I would be raising all day, every day, twice on a fucking Sunday. Aces, kings, queens, things like that. I am worried that he can have some slightly bigger overpairs. There's players galore in this pool who do have no 3-bet stat. I've got players where I've got like hundreds, if not thousands, of hands on them, and their 3-bet percent is 1%, 2%. And their favoured line is call pre and donk big. So they can have like pocket 10s, pocket jacks, call, see a safe flop, start blasting. So I am nervous that R7s aren't necessarily the best hand. But like there's a big difference here between, say, pocket 7s and pocket queens, pocket kings, because this guy doesn't just have to have sets here in this pool. He can just have pocket 8s and pocket 9s. So you'd want to raise against them with your stronger overpairs and just proceed more cautiously with your medium pairs.
So they put in the notes that why would it call the flop if we're going to fold to a bet on the turn when it's almost guaranteed to be an eye card?
Because, well, board's changing, you might not. You know, fine, you're right. If it does come a 10 and he pots it again, we probably, well, not a problem. We're almost certainly going to fold. But it might also come a 6 and he might check. And then we get to realise we can't just fold now. Like the logic of, I shouldn't call this if I'm folding the turn, it's not good logic to follow because that hasn't happened yet. You know, we're dealing with the street we're on at the minute. Our hand is just a pure call. And if the turn happens, whatever it may be, and he bombs pot again, we're very likely going to start finding folds, but it's too early to fold yet.
Okay.
You know, we have some equity. We can still make the best, even if we're behind now, we can still make the best hand.
King.
Now that's a brick, effectively. You shouldn't have that much king X in his pot donking. I think like if I'm assigning ranges on the flop, I'm assigning like overpairs, nutted stuff like ace-3 sets. Maybe he's just got a hand like 6-5 and he's just like, oh, fucking top pair, bet now, try and fucking make overcards fold, etc. So who knows what his motivation for donking is and like what his hand requirements are for donking pot on a 5-5 flop. But it doesn't. The king isn't necessarily a scary card in terms of like, you know, if we were ahead before, there's a good chance we're still ahead.
I think I'll fold, to be honest.
Now it's a trivial fold. Because we just can't go putting that much money in. But you know, again, we clearly didn't play another hand with this guy because we only got one hand with him. But just pay very close attention to what people get to showdown. When you see people donking, because it's an unusual strategy, it's becoming more common, but it's an unusual strategy and it's pretty hard to balance. When you see someone donking, whether you're in a pot or not, like just laser in on that table, and if the hand goes to showdown, pull up your hand replay and see what the hell went on. Because understanding how people are building their donking ranges, if people are donking with any kind of frequency, and there's people in these pools that are donking like 50%, you know, like there's not many, like a lot of the fish just do a lot of donking, and often it's with made hands, and they often have sizing tells too. So if you can get to the bottom of how people are constructing their donking ranges, and if they're sizing betrays their hand strength in any way, you need to know that, because these playing in these pools is all about getting in there with bad players who are making mistakes, figuring out what those mistakes are, and then figuring out how to exploit that before someone else gets them. So, you need to be really focused on what's happening when you're not in hand. So if you're not in hand at all three tables, you shouldn't be opening. And I'm not saying you do this, but so many people do. Don't be flicking your eyes over at the TV. Don't be opening Spotify to change your playlist. Don't be having a quick browse of fucking Twitter or Facebook or whatever. Just be
no,
in
I don't
there.
do that anymore. I'll just concentrate on the...
Yeah. So even when you're not in hands, make sure you're paying attention, because these guys are just going to give so much information away with the lines they take, because they're not balanced. When you're playing in games with 4 other eggs and 1 fish, and the 4 other eggs are all like your bog standard 22, 18, 6% 3-bet regs, there ain't that much to learn from the lines you take, because they're going to take relatively standard lines most of the time. But when you've got guys who are just like snap donking pot, you know they ain't taking standard lines. You know they're doing things that make themselves incredibly exploitable. So you need to figure out, right, this is exploitable, but how are they constructing this range so I can actually then get around to exploiting it? So, yeah, just pay very close attention. When people do non-standard things, pay very close attention to what they're doing it with, so you can figure out a counter strategy as quickly as possible.
Okay, perfect. So I think I had this one, so weren't too sure about the flop.
Yeah, you can't afford the
flop.
You know, we might be ahead. He might just have ace-5, and if he might just shut down when an overcard comes, and then we just get to show our hand out.
But I weren't too sure what the reply was. So again, no reads on this fella. 2 away.
Heads up, this is a mandatory 3-bet. Yep, nice. And I guess it's an all-in.
That's cool.
So what, well, yeah. What's your reasoning behind? Like, this is heads up. I mean, I have fucking awful heads up. Do not count this as coaching, because in no way is it. I have awful heads up. I will do it to start tables, because the best way to get on good tables is to start your own. But I'm no good heads up. But I'm very confident that Pocket Tenzi is just going to be a 5-bet jam heads up, especially against someone we just don't know. I mean, this guy could be a reg too. He hasn't got an iPoker generated name. He's playing a full stack, and he's table starting. So there's a reasonable chance this guy's a reg as well. So what's your thought process when you get 4-bet heads up and you have a hand as strong as 10s? What was the thought process that led you to call instead of shove?
I don't know, to be honest. I think it's just a case of, I don't know.
Because his range here, if he is any kind of reg, he's going to, his 4-bet range, and again, take this with the largest pinch of salt you can ever imagine. But I imagine his range is going to contain a lot of hands that 10s is at least flipping against, if not fucking crushing. You know, like, he's going to have, you assume, some kind of like ace-x 4-bet bluffs. You know, like, I don't know, your typical ones that spring to mind, like your ace-3 and your ace-4 and your ace-5 suited type hands. You know, he could easily be like value 4-betting that hands like ace-jack that are going to have a hard time when we shove. Ace-queen, ace-king, of course. He could have worst pocket pairs. He could have some like random fucking 10-jack suited. I don't know. I have no idea how heads-up 4-bet ranges are.
I think 4-bets on this side is quite very rare, so I think I was a bit cautious.
You think what, sorry?
4-betting on this skin is quite very rare.
This is heads up, so it's going to be less rare. Because of the world of difference between heads up and ring. Well, and that's I rubbish heads up. And you're right, you know, when he 4-bets, he likely doesn't have 7-5 offsuit. You know, so I get what you're saying. This is going to typically be good hands. It's going to be very, very strong hands, and it's going to be a lot of pretty stuff. But nevertheless, I think if we are going to table start, which I have no objection to you doing whatsoever, because as I said, it's the best way to get in good games is to start your own and just let the table fill around you. If you are going to table start and play a heads up, we can't be we can't be scared when we have pocket tens. If we choose to 3-bet pocket tens, which we should, and we get 4-bet, and we're going to be out of position, as we always will be heads up when we get 4-bet, I think by far the best player is just going to be fucking ripping it in. Because I was just playing a massive guessing game.
Especially if you know the flop comes.
I mean, if you're going to flop top set, then by all means let them see a flop. Middle set, sorry. By all means let them see a flop. But I mean, we'll skip this hand relatively quickly because I am shit heads up. I don't like it. I do it because it's a good investment. Even if I'm playing someone who's better than me and I'm losing even 5 or 6 big blinds 100 to them, which I'm probably not, but even if I am, if the game feels quickly enough, that little bit of edge I'm giving up to them is worth it if the game feels and it ends up being a good game. So yeah, I'm not going to have much to say about this because I have awful heads up. But let's just see what happens anyway.
Just to make sure
yeah, of course, yeah, we have to check.
Shove.
Why?
Do you think? So what do you say? Why or what?
Yeah, why?
Oh, I think maybe he's thinking hopefully got like Ace King, King Jack, something like King 10 maybe.
Yeah. So what's you gonna? If we call, what's you gonna do with them?
Carry on betting on the turn.
Yeah, and you know he's very likely to have some bluffs here too. If he's if he is 3-betting, if he is a reg, excuse me, it's a 4-bet pot, and it's come very good for his range theoretically. Yeah, I don't like this at all. Just let him. Imagine if we just called here, we're going to be left with. If we just take it back to like before we did our action, so there's already like 66 blinds in the pot. When we call, there's 82 blinds in the pot, and there's going to be just about that left behind, like 83.5 in our stack. So we don't need to raise here. We're going to have on the turn, the SPR is going to be 1. So even if he checks back the turn, we could just jam the river anyway. And, you know, so there's just no reason to raise here whatsoever. If he has King X, we're getting all the money anyway. But like I'm not a real big advocate these days of like check or like play passively to keep people's bluffs in. So I think generally speaking, people are too passive in the games we play. Players don't bluff enough. So checking in order to let people keep bluffing when they don't bluff enough, generally to me, is a bad idea. But heads up, I think that's probably different. I think people just are going to bluff way more because more often than not, you know, because it's heads up, ranges are much wider. People are just going to have air a lot more often. And they're going to feel like they have to bluff because they're going to have air against relatively weak ranges too. So I think like heads up, this is why I don't like playing heads up because it's just too fucking hard. But here I think right, we got middle set. It's a disaster if he folds. You know, he's not going to fold a king, but he's not going to stop betting a king either. I get that it stinks if he's got ace queen and a jack rolls off. When we could have made him fold ace queen now, but we don't want him to fold ace queen now. We want him to hit an ace. We want him to hit a queen. We want him to keep bluffing. So yeah, there's no reason to raise here. I think.
No, I thought I've just seen it. When I raised it, I should have just called it.
Yeah, it's a pretty huge overplay. If he doesn't have a king, he's probably not continuing unless he's got like 8 or something like that. Then he's obviously continuing. But if he doesn't have a king or better, he's probably a good chance you're going to make him fold. And if he has got a king or better, then he's not going to stop betting. So yeah, this is a pretty big overplay. As it happens, you got the money anyway, so happy days. Yeah, just a cooler heads up, isn't it? It's whatever. That's a massive cooler. You could have saved yourself a lot of energy by just jamming pre and having him call, and then you just saved your mouse a few clicks, wouldn't you?
Yeah, that definitely made sense. So I knew on the flop when I'd done that bet, that I probably should have just called it. But
yeah, but bringing heads up hands to me, it's fucking ridiculous because I'm awful. But yeah, I would imagine like kings is just tens is just a slam dunk 5-bet shove free against anyone you think might be a reg.
Okay. Let's see, what's that this one?
Look at this table as well. Fucking delightful. Okay, so why just 3x?
Why just I don't know. I just think I should have gone probably a 4x or 5x.
We'll play the 64/3. Right, click on his HUD a moment. This is a good stat for you to look at when you get more hands on people. So you click on it so it brings a pop-up up. And then at the bottom of that, it's got limp and call raise percentage. At the bottom of that middle bit. Now, what's that there? So he hasn't done it once yet, but that's a good stat to have because you'll find absolutely shit tons of these like 40/0s, 50/0s, 33/5s, and all that. So before you isolate them, always look at that. And the higher the limp and call raise number is, the less frequently you want to isolate them light, and then just use larger sizings with strong hands. And the more that if their limp and call is only say 50%, then you want to isolate them like a little bit wider and use smaller sizes. So if this guy had like say limp and call 10 times out of 10, then I'd just make it like fucking 8x here because the guy ain't folding and whatever. We've got a premium hand. The guy ain't folding. Let's make it fucking huge. Now let's say we had 2 aces and his limp and call raise was say only 1 out of 5. Then I'd just to make it like 4x or something, 3 or 4x, because we don't want him to fold. And this guy limp folds a lot. So against people who limp fold a lot, we want to be using smaller sizes and using a wider range. And against people who limp and then never fold, no point isolating them too wide because they're not folding anyway. So just like use a narrower, more value-orientated range, and then use a much larger sizing. Because also, if you go too small try to seek isolation on this site, you ain't going to achieve isolation because you're just going to get call. So yeah, that's the thing to look at, and then like be exploitable as fuck. If they're like, just to reiterate, if they're limp calling everything, then just be really tight with your ranges and really big with your sizes. If they are limp folding a lot, then widen your range and use smaller sizes.
Okay, that makes sense.
So what do we think this monster Gray's got in the small blind who's just like calling? Because usually you'd expect people to play 3-bet or fold from the small blind, but he's called, which I would, if I was in his shoes, I would do with a pretty wide range because of the presence of the 64-3. But what answer can we eliminate from his range based on the fact he's clearly some kind of reg?
The premium hands that normally would 3-bet?
Yeah.
Like 10s plus?
I assume this is going to be pocket pairs, suited connectors, and some suited broadways up to like Queen Jack suited. That would be my default assumption here, that type of thing. So let's see what happens on the flop.
Okay.
That's an absolute dog cock of a flop.
Don't check.
Oh, spicy. Okay. So now what do we think? Don't rush it on yet. What are we thinking here?
I think I'm probably still ahead.
Still ahead of both of them?
Oh, it's definitely this fella.
Why definitely?
Well, not definitely, but I think he's just going to call anything at all. So, I went too short.
Yeah, I agree. But the guy's 64-3. So what does that mean? When you see someone who's 64-3, what does that typically mean about them?
You're playing 2 cards.
But are they passive or are they aggressive?
Passive.
So why do you now think that you're probably still ahead when a passive guy just bet full pot into 2 people?
I don't know.
See, there's a disconnect in your logic there. And again, I promise I'm not trying to, I'm not asking these questions to make you look silly.
No, I need to learn, don't I? So.
We've got a 64/3 who we know is, now some of these guys are really passive pre-flop and then just mentally aggro post-flop. Now we don't have enough sample on him. We just pull up his HUD again for a moment, pull up his pop-up. If you click on the flop, and you see what his flop bet percentage in general is, bet pot in general. I can't fucking see properly because but his bet limped pot is like 5 out of 7. We know this is a limped pot, but the guy's playing 64 VPIP. He hasn't connected with the board 5 times out of 7, you wouldn't imagine. So this guy looks like he's the kind of player who is like loose passive pre and then potentially spewy post. But nevertheless, for the time being, our default assumption about this guy is fucking passive, who then just overplays post flop. So I when you say things like we are definitely ahead, I don't like
Well,
being that definitive, and I certainly don't like being that definitive against these types of players. I actually think there's a good chance we're not ahead here versus these two ranges, and versus this bet size, I would just fold. Because like big blind, we've already established that we think like small blind might be quite pocket pair heavy, and he's probably not going to be that inclined to. When he donks pot here and we call, like his big blind going to fall pocket eights, not in a fucking million. He's just going to come along with his pocket eights. He might even fucking try and raise for value against the 64-3 guy. I think this is much closer to a fold than it is to a call, because like we just when these like 64-3 guys just start taking off with pot size bets, we don't want to be overfolding to them, not by a long stretch. We think well that the better hands we have to do this with. We just have all the overpairs. We have some 5x ourselves. We have some suited stuff that's at least got backdoor flush draws, etc. Like we're quite low in rate in terms of like all the hands we need to defend here, and he's bet pot, so we don't have to defend that many hands versus large bets. Ace King's a long way down the list of like mandatory defense here. It's like one of those situations where we had a really good hand pre-flop, and now we have a mediocre hand at best. So don't get married to it. I mean, I'm presuming you're going to call it. Were you saying, I think I definitely had the best hand? I'm going to presume that you're going to call. And maybe you do have the best hand. But when we're facing pot-sized bets, we just don't have to defend like a huge amount of our range. And we just have far better hands to continue with than this one.
Okay, I think I raised it, to be honest.
Oh, that is spicy.
Yeah.
Right. This is just you spewing. There's no other way to describe this. It's just pure spew. What are you trying to make him fold here? Or are you seeking value? Which is it? Are you trying to get called by a worse hand, or are you trying to make him fold a better hand? Which one of those two things is it?
Get caught by a worse hand.
Like what?
I don't know. Ace 10 or something like that. I don't know.
Well, right. So okay. So we think he's donking pot with ace 10 for no reason here, and then we think he's also going to call a raise with it. Now, you need to like connect your like logic up a little bit better, because you're needing a lot of things to happen here for this to be correct. You're needing him to limp call ace 10, which he probably almost certainly does, because look at his repip and that. But then we'll expect him to then donk multi-way full pot with ace 10, and then call when he gets raised against a pre-flop raiser. I mean, how likely is it that sequence of events is going to happen?
Not very often.
Yeah, it's just almost never going to happen. So you're just trying to like invent a scenario in your head that validates this play, when in reality, the likelihood of all those things coming together and aligning for you are fucking close to zero. This is more likely just you be like, fuck off, mate. I had a good hand, and I'm just going to try and win this fucking pot anyway.
Pretty much. Probably a bit of ego.
Yeah, it's your ego. And these games are a head fuck. They're an absolute head fuck, because so often you're going to like have ranges that are way stronger than your opponent's pre-flop. And then the flop's going to come down, and all of a sudden,
turn around.
You're not going to have a stronger range. And even if your range is still stronger, you're just not going to be able to continue against them a lot of the time. You need to get out of the habit of like, I had a good hand pre-flop, so fuck you.
Yeah, an ego thing.
Yeah, you're just going to be like, right, if my hand was good pre-flop and it's still good, fucking brilliant. Where if my hand was like way ahead pre-flop and now it's not so way ahead anymore, and passive players, passive fish are putting in decent action, you just have to fucking grow up and fold.
No, definitely. I did put on the notes. I don't know what I raised.
Yeah, it's just
maybe a read from previous hands. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's different. If it was read based, if you're seeing this guy like donk and call a raise with like no pair, then fine. And if you just said that to me, 2 hands earlier, Reg, you fucking donked in the same spot and called all in with it, fucking ace jack. Brilliant, fucking do it. I have no problem.
So I can't. That's what I put on my notes. Maybe I had a read. I don't know for sure if I did though. So I ain't too sure.
Yeah.
If I did.
Well, unless you had a read, that is just a mega punt, and I do not like it. And that's way more to me. That's an emotional race. It's not a logical, sensible race. It's a fuck off, mate race. And we don't.
I did put that on my notes yesterday that I don't know what that is for.
Yeah. You
Maybe.
raised because you were pissed off.
Mm-hmm.
And you were like,
Could have been.
fuck you. That's why you raised. And if you do too much fuck you in these pools, the fish are going to fucking annihilate you because they don't play by the same rules we play by.
Yeah,
You know,
I know.
the guy might just fucking flick it in with pocket sixes here and not give a fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, just be aware that like we can't get like entitled to just feel entitled, like, oh fucking on mate, you're on 64 VP. If I got ace king pre, I'm just gonna win this pot. You can't let those feelings of entitlement make you make players like that, because if you do, you're gonna be in for a very, very frustrating time.
No, definitely. I think I do. I do a lot of adjusting to this skin because what you say, I actually write in my notes what you say most of the time. So when I do think it through after playing it,
Yeah,
I do agree with what you say, to be honest.
When you're playing, you have a problem disconnecting from the emotional side of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And you just you allow the emotional side of your brain to act, and before the logical side of the brain kicks in, like we talked about last week. Just take your hands off the mouse if you need to. Just relax. Let the initial annoyance of the fact this cunt's donk pottage, let that pass.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay, fuck off, mate. We all feel like that. I'd feel like that too. If he did that to me, I'd be like, fuck's sake, mate. And then I'd let that feeling pass for a second. And then I would be like, right, well, okay, now what are we doing? How are we continuing? And then make the decision. Do not let the chimp in your brain. I don't know if you've read the Chimp Paradox. It's written by that bloke who got Ronnie O'Sullivan. It's like we've all got a chimp in our brain when we're emotional, when we're stressed and stuff. And the chimp just fucking smashes the fucking room up. You can't let him be in control. Let the chimp have his fucking tantrum. And then, right, have you finished now, chimp? Good. Right, now let's start thinking. And then start thinking what to do. Do not, when the chimp's fucking throwing his tantrum and lobbing the chairs around, just take your hands off the mouse, let him do his thing, and then when he's finished, when the emotions subsided, be like, right, now what are we going to do? And you'll find yourself making far better decisions.
No, definitely. So,
because we won the pot there, but I don't think we played it well.
No, like I said, I don't know if I had agreed on it before, like the end before, I don't know.
I'm just going to give you a quick time check, sir, because you did say you had to go at 10:15, and time has flown. So if you need to go, that's completely fine. If you've got time for one more, again, that's completely fine by me too.
So. I'll do have to shoot because just try calling me. I do have to go.
No problem, mate. Well, you bugger off then. And
okay, thank you very much.
And yeah, well, I'll chat with you again next week. But in these games, just be sure that clever Martin's out there and not Chimp Martin.
No, definitely. So I got a lot more time this week, so hopefully I'll get to play a lot more.
Magic.
Then
right, we'll chat next week then,
sir. Be a bit longer.
No problem.
Thank you for your time and have a good
anytime, mate. You too. So there we go. That's the end of the brief chat with Martin. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We're back hopefully with a longer video with Martin next week, some more hands in and some less heads up hands that I fucking absolutely stink at. But there we go. That is the end of that. I'm not sure if there are any more videos this week. Maybe there might be, maybe not, who knows. But for now, we're going to shoot off. As always, fuck the Tories and anyone who supports them. And yeah, we'll see you in the next video. Take care, everybody, and bye-bye for now.